All right. Today on the show, we have Jeff Lottmann from the Jeff Lottmann Group with Dielmann Sotheby's in St. Louis, Missouri, place I used to live a million years ago. But let me tell you about Jeff. Now, Jeff Lottmann has applied his business insight, his networking ability, and his talent for sales to multiple endeavors over the course of his professional career. As vice president of sales for a medical care company, he worked with high net worth individuals, interacted directly with C-suite executives, and increased the company's clients exponentially. And in 2002, he turned his passion for real estate into a profession, founding the Lottmann Realty Group. The firm, based in St. Louis, focuses on high net worth individuals and luxury properties. With Jeff at the helm, a talented staff, and gross sales of over 300 million, the Jeff Lottmann Group has become the high-end real estate firm of choice for hundreds of families and luxury real estate investors in the St. Louis area and beyond. Please learn more about Jeff at his website, which is jefflottmann.com. And Lottmann is spelled Lottmann. Again, Jeff, Lottmann.com. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are really thrilled to have you because the number one question that our listeners send to us is, hey, ask your guests how to break into the luxury market, because everybody wants to work luxury. And I know that that is not an easy task or not an easy endeavor, but everyone starts somewhere. So we would love to go all the way back to the beginning of your career and learn about why you got into real estate and how you did.
Well, it was interesting. You mentioned I was a VP of a medical company, and post 9/11, I was kind of forced to make a move because what happened is we managed emergency departments, and our medical malpractice carrier, we had to renew on 10/1 of 2001. Oh. So at that point, it was in utter turmoil. So our medical malpractice went up about 2,000%.
Oh my gosh.
So unfortunately, the company couldn't sustain even a day longer. So
sure.
I was literally forced to do that. And it was good because I had a couple rental homes, and I loved the real estate. There's just so many avenues, as you've talked about in the intros, that you can make money and you can enjoy it. So being forced to get in it, I literally just went both feet in the deep end, and here we are 20 years later.
Was it a big shift going from working in a more traditional corporate environment with all of the layers that enterprise level companies sort of deal with, to then being in business essentially for yourself? Was that a big shift for you, or was that a pretty seamless transition?
No, it was incredibly difficult. When you're in the corporate world, your day is fairly structured. Yeah. So when you become the entrepreneurial and in the real estate, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And if I don't sell anything, I'm not going to get paid. So, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So it took a while. It took guts. It was a tremendous leap of faith, and luckily it paid off.
So how did you go about finding clients when you first got started, being that everybody knew you as a different type of businessman? And now now again, you did have the experience with your own rental properties, which I am sure was invaluable to helping your clients, but just in how to market yourself and how you got clients. Do you mind sharing sort of what worked for you back then?
Well, it wasn't easy. It's when you're new, they hate to take a chance on you.
Right.
So what I did is I literally started with friends and family. And since I was building my own brand, I went to a lot of networking events, and every day I was somewhere, whether it would be a local health club and passing out cards. And it truly was just a relentless pursuit of business, because literally I didn't have an income coming in anymore. So I had to generate one, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all, but when you're building your own brand, it's fun. So, it's meeting face to face, it's asking for help. And that's the key, is everybody is willing to help. But when you're new, it's like, well, he's new, he can't do this, but he can do that. So I got fortunate that several good friends gave me an opportunity right off the bat. And luckily I had some help from experienced agents to kind of lead me down a successful path.
Yeah, I've always thought and I understand when newer agents are reluctant to want to work with friends and family because, of course, they feel maybe their inexperience might screw up the deal, or maybe they just don't feel as confident and they don't want to be embarrassed or with these people that are closest to them. And I understand that that thought. And I've always said, on the flip side, your friends and family are most likely to forgive you if there is a mistake as well. So I'm not sure if there's a right or wrong way to do that, but I would encourage all of our listeners who may be in that part where maybe you're newer to the business to at least remind everybody that that you are looking for business. But what Jeff did, is so important, and it's so simple, and it seems so obvious, but it is sort of something that I think the vast majority of us who are practicing real estate probably struggle with, which is business development, which would mean going out, talking to people, passing out your card, getting their information, adding people to your database, which again is a tedious task, and it is not easy, and it takes guts. But you really just said it exactly as almost every other person I've ever interviewed on this show said, is I went out and talked to a lot of different people and tried to, remind them that this is now what I do.
And you know what, I always said yes. So it was crazy kind of early on how the path led me, but one of my early clients was looking for a large multifamily, and he's like, "Can you do that?" I said, "Yes." Then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I got to go find somebody who knows what to tell me what to do." But it was interesting because he was a California buyer that was buying in St. Louis because the cap rates were so much better here. And you know what? I partnered with a guy that knew what he was doing, and I faked it until we made it, and he ended up buying 600 units. So the key is say yes, because even if you're not comfortable with, there's somebody in your company or one of your friends that has already experienced this, and they can partner with you, and together as a team, you're going to be dynamite. So that's the key, is say yes. If anybody asks, can you do it? Yes, I can.
Boy, better advice I don't think has ever been shared. I couldn't agree with you more. And even if you really, truly can't assist that client, as Jeff sort of alluded to, there's someone in your area that can, and maybe they even work at a different company, and you can say, "Hey, I'm going to pass this over to a colleague of mine at such and such firm or at my own firm, and I'm going to be part of the transaction, but this is this person's specialty, and I'm going to pay it." That's okay to do as well. And obviously, Jeff's advice is basically that. But yes, mentorship, partnering. Don't worry about what you don't know, because someone else that you can partner up with already has that information, and it will just make your life a lot easier than trying to figure it all out yourself. Jeff, I would love to talk about this idea of luxury, because I know that there's such a fantasy, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but so many people think, if I could only get those $1 million listings, that would solve all of my problems. If I could only get those buyers that are in that high net worth sort of bracket. And I'm not saying that isn't a great thing. Of course, it's a wonderful thing if that's where your passion is. But can you talk about what drew you to the luxury market and how you went about starting to infiltrate sort of that space?
Well, I think it takes a lot of confidence, especially if you're younger, because it is intimidating to deal with the C-suite people and high net worth people. But guess what? You're the expert, and they need your help. And as you move up in the luxury market, it's much more of a business decision than an emotional one. So I just kind of took what it was at the time, 15 years of sales, business, C-suite interaction, and was not afraid to deal with them. I wasn't intimidated by them. I approached them, and I felt like I brought a whole business marketing that was a little bit different than the old days of just putting the sign in the yard and doing nothing. And I asked for the business. So it's confidence. It's like, yeah, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Yeah, we do this. And then the other thing I think is excellent is to get with one of your local luxury builders in the area and learn how the houses are built. Learn if it's learn what they do. What's different in this area? Is it a green builder? Is he an energy efficient builder? I mean, what are people buying? What do they like? What do they want? And then you can kind of use that, because there's a good chance that when you go in the luxury market, you're going to sell one of these builders' homes, and you already know what his shtick is or her shtick and what the advantages are of that home. And then you're going to be able to sell it even beyond the walls. So you're going to know what he put in the house. Is it energy efficient? As I mentioned, is it, do they have radiant or heat? So I think it makes all the sense in the world is to talk to the luxury builders, and they'll flip you a lead here too if they can't find somebody for a potential lot, or if the budget's a little bit higher than they want, then they'll call you and say, "Hey Jeff, I've got a buyer for you. Can you help them out?" So I think that's a good way to start.
It's a really great suggestion. We've done about 300 episodes, and I don't think anyone has actually given that particular piece of advice, which is such a great advice. Is if you want to work in the luxury market, start talking to the services that service luxury clients like luxury builders and say, "Hey, I want to learn what you do so that I can relay that information. And oh, by the way, when my client wants to build something, I would want to pass that over to you as well, Mr. Luxury or Mrs. Luxury Builder. But I also just want some good talking points about, these types of properties and what I should be telling my clients." And of course that those referrals go both ways. So what I can't imagine how much business you have probably provided to some of those builders just by sheer fact of you being connected to that high net worth individual.
Well, you're exactly right. It does go both ways. And here's the thing. So builders always reach out to their real estate community to find lots, because in today's market, if a lot hits the market, most of them don't, especially where they want. So they're gonna look at you as, hey, a source to try to find them lots so they can build. So to answer your question, sure, that on the one particular one was an energy efficient builder, and I didn't know anything about it. So I talked to him. He gave me a tour of his home. He showed me in 2 or 3 other homes. And then I've given him 4 clients totaling over $20 million of revenue to him. So yeah, I mean, he and I have become good friends for obvious reasons.
I imagine.
Yes. But you know what? He calls me if he gets leads on his website, and he'll say, "Hey Jeff, these people aren't in my range, but here you go. Can you help them?" And again, I mean, that's a source that I got lucky with, but just from talking to people. But if you're not engaging in the luxury builder market, I think you're missing an opportunity to get some significant business.
Yeah. I also wonder too, by the way, such a great strategy. And I also wonder what percentage of realtors would even think to contact a builder and say, "I want to learn about your business so that I can service clients that use your services." It's such a smart thing to do that maybe isn't as obvious as, well, I want to study the luxury market and look at the MLS and really understand those properties and all the data that the MLS might reflect. But going beyond the data into the actual structure of the home and understanding, what those clients look for from a builder's perspective is really, really smart. I know I'm hammering this point hard, but I think it is such a great idea. So that in and of itself is an amazing, amazing tip. I also wanted to ask your opinion about this because you reminded me of a conversation I had maybe 10 years ago or so with not on this podcast because we didn't exist back then, but with somebody who was a realtor in Texas, and they were thinking of moving here to Chicago, and they were thinking maybe joining our firm. And he had been in the business. This gentleman had been in the business about 30 years. And I said, "Oh my gosh, this is before I had this podcast." I go, "You have to tell me what can I tell we have hundreds of realtors at our firm." I said, "I want to know what a 30-year veteran in the business knows that maybe our younger agents don't." And he goes, it was the funniest thing. And he said, and this isn't always true, but he goes, "I've learned that it takes just as much work to sell a $300,000 home as it does a $3 million home." He said, "It really isn't, as far as the workload," he goes, "it isn't really any different. It's different strategies and we do different things." But he goes, "It's the same amount of work." And I'm curious, and I don't know that that's always true, but I'm curious if you have found that to be a similar experience, or if it just, or not.
So I would say, I think the luxury market, they demand a little bit more.
Sure.
But in a weird way, it's easier because they know exactly what they want. And again, I go back to, it's a business decision. It's not an emotional decision.
Yeah.
But I think what you got to try to do is treat both the same, because, especially a Sotheby's, it is about the luxury experience. And no matter if you're, first-time home buyer, or you're a seasoned investor, or if you're buying your, palatial estate, it's about treating everybody the same. And the good news is the $300,000 client might buy 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more homes from you. The $5 million client, this might be their home for the rest of their life. So it's about providing the luxury experience and talking the luxury game, no matter what level. Because think of the doctors. The doctors will buy 5 homes in their life. So if he or she is in residency, they start out with a starter home, say it's $100,000. Well, as soon as they get out of that and they get their offer letter, all of a sudden they're making $300,000-$400,000, and now they're buying a $500,000 home. Well, then they're going to buy a move-up home. Then they're going to buy a family home and a vacation home. So the reality is, as you move up in the net worth clients, you've got to kind of look globally, because they will buy 2 or 3 homes. So you have to have a wide-ranging network. And for Sotheby's, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I just sent one to Palm Springs, and I just sent one to Hilton Head, and these are a couple $1 million. So you've got to just expand your view when you're dealing with high net worth clients, is they have multiple things, and that does include multiple houses.
Yeah. And I also like what you said about treating everybody as if they are a high net worth client as well. And Sotheby's, of course, for those of us that maybe don't have a Sotheby's real estate office in our location, we all know the brand and the name, and we know it's associated with luxury. And there is nothing that feels better to maybe a true non-luxury client than getting a luxury experience. I mean, of course, luxury clients are going to expect that experience, and you have to deliver. But if you can deliver that experience to the person buying the first time home, or, whether they're a doctor who will, down the road, maybe be buying $1 million plus properties, or even just a first time home buyer who this is their, if you can treat them as if they're luxury, boy, that is not a very common experience that non-high net worth individuals get to experience. And I'll tell a quick story. This is the funniest example I can think of, but it meant a lot to me. It impacted me. I was renting a storage space, and you know how cheap storage spaces probably are. All of us can relate. It's like $30 a month for a little garage thing, and the same ones you see on Storage Wars. And I was just here in the city, here in Chicago, and I had to store some stuff for a few months. And I walked in, and it was like, I think it was $27 a month. And you would have thought that I was their number one client. And I am sure I was the lowest paying client they had. And I walked in, they were so thrilled to see me afterwards. They're like, "We are so grateful you came in." And this is a successful business. It's not like I was their first customer. And I went home and I just got treated like a king for a $27 a month rental. And I go, that was the smartest thing those people ever did. Because I immediately told everybody I knew about that experience. I said, this is kind of funny, but it was also made me feel really special. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that. But Jeff's right. Treat everyone as if they are a high net worth individual and a luxury client, because that could lead, of course, to additional luxury clients, because they are going to expect that experience.
Oh, you're right. You just hit it on the head, actually. I mean, think about how many people you told. And guess what? This is a referral business, and you're building your own brand. So, I mean, it goes back to, treat people how you want to be treated. But I say treat people better than how you want to be treated, because you have no idea who's watching or who they know or what they're going to say. And trust me, especially with social media in these days, if somebody has a bad experience, guess what? They're going to blast it all over everywhere. So, and I think it's better to err on the side of the luxury experience and treating everybody the same than not.
I couldn't agree more. I want to pause for just a moment and talk about our sponsor for the episode. So our sponsor is Follow Up Boss. Now, after interviewing hundreds of top realtors in the country for this podcast, do you know which CRM is used by more than any other of our amazing guests, of course, it's Follow Up Boss. Let's face it, following up is the key to taking your business to the next level, and Follow Up Boss will help you drive more leads in less time with less effort. Do not take my word for it. Robert Slack, who runs the #1 team in the US, uses Follow Up Boss, and he's built a $1.5 billion business in just 6 years. Follow Up Boss integrates with over 250 different systems, so you can keep your current tools and lead sources. They also have 7-day-a-week support, so you'll get the help that you need. And get this, Follow Up Boss is so sure that you're going to love their CRM that for a limited time, they're offering Keeping It Real listeners a 30-day free trial. That's twice as much as they give everyone else. And oh yeah, no credit card required, but only if you use this special link. Visit followupboss.com/real. That's followupboss.com/real for your free 30-day trial. Follow up like a boss with Follow Up Boss. Jeff, I would love to also talk to you about the state of the luxury market. What is going on in luxury these days? How have things changed, or have things been relatively consistent in the last couple of years?
So I think they have been consistent. I think actually, I would say they've grown considerably. I think that the amount of luxury homes that have been built in this area and the luxury buyers it's just continuing to grow. I mean, I think especially the last 2 years, I think a lot of people are putting more money in their home and in their family. So instead of taking, 12, whatever, a nice vacation, what they're doing is they're saying, hey, have all the family come home. So crazily, you see a lot of empty nesters that are building their dream home, these really big homes, so they can accommodate all their kids and their grandkids and everybody when they come home. So I think the luxury market is exceptionally, exceptionally strong. And I mean, you see it all over the country. It's truly continuing to grow.
I know that you're in your group, you guys have just expanded out west. So St. Louis, you predominantly were focused in certain areas of St. Louis, although certainly, doing a lot of different. St. Louis is a big city, but also you started expanding out west. And I'd love to hear strategically, how you decided to start increasing your sort of geographic service area, because I know for you, it's really critical for you to understand those markets before jumping in. So can you talk a little bit about why you decided to expand beyond your existing sort of area?
Well, I think that's where you do have to bring in some data and kind of get an idea of where the people are going and what the builders, again, your more tract builders and luxury home builders, where they're building. So for us, it just made sense. St. Louis can only grow really one place, and that's west. So as you see, kind of we're in Clayton and have been for years, and now, Chesterfield and Town and Country, some of these other affluent areas, it just made absolutely perfect sense for us to move our grow, put another office out west, which will be, Chesterfield and Town and Country, because that's another hub of wealth and I think opportunity. I mean, there's building galore and I think it made perfect sense.
I'm curious on how you stay in touch with your customers after a transaction, because I always feel that, and again, as a real estate agent, we wear many different hats. Most of us are solo practitioners, or we may have a group or a team, but we're doing a lot of the work ourselves. And it's easy to lose track of our previous clients because we're on to the new and the next deal. But I'm curious, I know that for you, having those relationships stay consistent and strong, even after the sale, of course, is critical. And I'm just curious if you have any tips or advice for our listeners about things that have worked for you to keep your name and you're in the back of the minds of the people that you've helped in the past.
Well, I would say that's probably my weakness, because it's very much a hunting mentality. It's on to the next one. But
sure,
over time I've tried different things. But there's a company in St. Louis that they send random gifts and at any point in time. So I give them all my client list, and literally if it's Green Frog Day, they'll send something that's Green Frog Day to a client. So it's not necessarily on their anniversary of the house or on their birthday. Sure. It's like some random thing. It's like this is Hispanic month. So you know what? Maybe they'll send something Hispanic, to them and say, hey, happy Hispanic month. And it just keeps them on their toes. And they're like, where did this come from? So, I mean, I would like to say that I would do that. Would do that better. But I think if I need to improve on something, I think that's where I need to improve on. So, I mean, if you're new to the business, for gosh sake, start loading you said it earlier, start loading your CRM and your funnel and just build that, because that's gold right there.
Boy, that's such a great, we're going to have to find a sponsor for our podcast that does those random gifts, because that is an unbelievably brilliant idea. I love the idea of random gifts outside of the major holidays, because of course there's nothing wrong with sending a December holiday card and a gift, because of course, that's the time of the year that people sort of would expect something to that, but they're going to get a lot of that stuff anyway. I like the idea of, getting something on Arbor Day or Green Frog Day.
That's it.
They're not getting anything else on Green Frog Day except your gift. And guess what? They're going to smile, and it doesn't even have to be an expensive gift. It could be a $2 item.
That's exactly what they are. They're cheap. I mean, they're nothing, but it's like so random. They're like, thanks. And you know what? They'll text you or call you and be like, hey, thanks for the bobblehead. I'm like, well, what was it? National Bobblehead Day? I mean, it gets them. It's great. I mean, think about it. If you have 500 clients, or let's say and you whittle that down to your top 50 clients. So on Thanksgiving, if you try to put 50 pumpkin pies, I mean, that takes an exorbitant amount of time and energy, and it's expensive too. But, we did that one year where we hand delivered them, and you got to catch them at home. And if you don't, you set it on the porch, and, we were lucky to find this. It's a brilliant idea. I agree with you. I wish I had stock in it.
Well, I love that. And for those of us who are newer, and maybe you'll have to do this yourself, because maybe you're at a stage where you can't afford to hire a company to do this. Just look up, interesting, little known holidays or little known, days, and you can come up with some really cute and fun ideas. And I love that. Back to the luxury market for just a moment, because again, you are a luxury agent, and I definitely want to continue to talk about this. How important is it for you when you're working with a buyer or a seller? I guess it really doesn't matter, but understanding sort of the story of the house you're either selling or that you're visiting for your buyer. Understanding, this goes back to, of course, understanding the build quality and all of the features and benefits. But I would imagine luxury clients really want to hear a story. And I don't mean, once upon a time sort of story, but understanding the really, I'm curious on how you describe homes as you're walking through, or do you mostly stay back and let the home sort of tell the story for itself?
Well, that's interesting you said that, because in my opinion, every single home has a story. And in some of these, I mean, if you think about it, if you go to kind of the older communities where they're turn of the century homes and they have these mansions, well, there's a story. I mean, there's essentially a 100-year story. And even where there's new construction, there's a farm that used to belong to, somebody's family way back then. So it's interesting you said that, because I always talk about that there's a home to every story. And then I tend to sit back a little bit and especially on the luxury market, I like to kind of follow the client's leads when I'm showing the home, and then kind of work in, depending on how you can read the buyers. You have to read your buyers, but I'm not one that's out in front like you see on Selling LA or anything like that. It's like I tend to be a little bit more low key and low pressure, and then, but you do absolutely have to know the story of the house and the surrounding area and the farm that it was built on, or the farm across the street, or where the ground came from. But it makes for, it actually helps you to sell it for sure.
So if you're Thank you, and I'm glad to hear that, and I'm no surprise, of course. But for our listeners, if you're working with a buyer and it's not your listing, of course, or maybe it could be, I guess, but let's assume it isn't, and you don't know the story of the home. How are you learning that? Are you contacting the listing agent? Because sometimes, of course, listing agents are there to do the showing, and sometimes they aren't. It depends on, you know, rules and regulations and sort of the norms of how realtors operate in your area. But how do you learn the story of when it's not your own listing?
Well, that's a good question too. I mean, if it's an older home, you Google the address because that's a plethora of information. But then, of course, yes, I rely on the listing agent. You want to build rapport with them, and just ask them, say, hey, what is the story of the home? You know, to give me some things to help with the buyer. You know, if there's a fountain out back or there's an interesting piece in the driveway, then get the story of that, because every home, I go back to this, every home has a story. It really does. And the more you know is just going to help you sell the house and to bring value to both yourself, the buyers, and in the house.
I wonder what percentage of agents, whether it's a luxury property or a starter property, or a distressed property even, I wonder what percentage of realtors do contact the listing agent and say, hey, give me some talking points, or, you know, in a polite way, hey, I'd love to help sell this home. Tell me what's going on with this property. Tell me the story. I bet it's a very low percentage of agents who are willing to make that call, especially now that we can schedule appointments, of course, without talking to agents, the listing agent directly. Most of us have automated services that do that. So we, you know, can schedule it without ever speaking to the agent, but making that extra step and saying, hey, I'm going to go see your property on Tuesday. I want every bit of information so that I can sell this home for you. I imagine most agents probably just don't think to do it or feel that they're too busy, but that's just so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you have to do that, especially since we're talking luxury. I think in the luxury, you have to realize that you're in this together. The whole idea is to try to get a favorable outcome and a favorable sale. And the listing agent is an important part of this because they have the home listed, so they've already done all the research, hopefully. So if you build rapport, you find the story of the house, then I think it only helps. I mean, we're not enemies here. We're on the same team. We're literally trying to help sell the house and, you know, get a mutual beneficial outcome.
And it is called a cooperative commission. So
yes, exactly.
Cooperate. Yeah, it's that other person is not the enemy, although it sometimes may feel that way. But you guys can always work together, of course. And I never get to these questions, and Jeff was nice enough to sort of pulling back the curtain on how we do things here on the show. We always ask a few questions to tee up for these episodes, and I'm so scatterbrained that I never get to them. So my promise for the next year is that I won't skip these, but these are great too. I would love to hear about, just because I could absolutely see this happening, and a lot of our listeners have probably had a similar experience, but do you mind sharing your story about hiring a cleaning company to do a final clean on a property, and sort of what happened, what went wrong?
This was almost it was almost a disaster. So I had two listings, and there was one in the middle, and I had two listings on either side. Well, one was sold, and the final cleaning company was supposed to go to the one that's sold. And granted, this was 6:30 in the morning, but they went to, they went to the other home that was still listed, and literally walked into their home at like 6:30 in the morning, and that Mr. Seller's standing there in the kitchen going, "What are you doing here?" They're like, "Oh my God, I'm at the wrong home. What should I do?" Love that. So it was like, I mean, they're lucky that, number one, I couldn't believe that the house that we had listed, the door was open. And number two, because I told them, just go to the back door, it's open. There's no key in the lockbox. So sure enough, they go to the back door, the wrong home, and it's open. It's like, who would ever think that? But it was, we are lucky that, yeah, we got lucky, but they didn't think it was funny at the time. But I think it's it's pretty darn funny.
It's pretty darn funny. And then I love this other story that Jeff sent us, which is funny because to me, after doing so many of these episodes, when we often ask agents like, what's your most unusual real estate experience? Just because we think it's fun to ask that question. And we usually get one of a couple of similar experiences, which is, oh my gosh, I walked into this one room in the house that it was very adult themed, or there was something more risque that was out, or there were people who were in the room doing adult things. So we've heard that one a lot, but Jeff has a different version of that. But can you mind sharing the story about when you were showing a home to some buyers and there were people in the room? Do you mind sharing sort of what happened there?
No, it's very similar to what you said. It's like we opened the door and it was about 10 a.m. and you could tell they had a party or something the night before. And we're like, where you get that odd feeling that someone's in the house, but you don't know where.
Right.
So we're just going through it. And then we open up, of course, the master, and there is the Mr. and Mrs. or the homeowners there in bed. And they're like, hey, don't mind us. We had a long night. Just let me know if you have any questions. We're like, okay, we'll let you know. So on the way out, I just knocked on the door and I said, hey, we're leaving. Thanks.
I love that. Like, oh, hey, don't mind us. And by the way, we're here to answer all your questions. Because usually the story is I walked in on a couple and they were engaged in a amorous thing. And we immediately left. And in this case, they were like, no, we're good. We're just sleeping. Go ahead.
Don't mind us. I know.
We want to sell this house. Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, Jeff, for any of our listeners who may be, for example, maybe have clients that are moving to St. Louis who are in that luxury space, who are looking to partner up with an agent like yourself there, or if one of our listeners is a luxury buyer, a seller, investor, Jeff is the guy in the luxury market there in St. Louis and West County. Jeff, what's the best way that someone can either reach out to you to refer business to you or to learn more about what your team offers?
I just go to the website. That's easy. It has all my contact information on there, and it's jefflottmann.com. It's just my name.com, jefflottmann.com. And yes, I deal with people all over the country, and it's great to get to know other realtors across the country. And like I said, we're all in this together. So I'll take care of anybody, provide them a luxury experience. And of course, I expect that in return from anybody that I would send. But it's, I love it. I love what I do. I'm glad I fell into this. It's a wonderful profession.
Boy, you can really hear some of us might be watching this and others are listening, but even if you're just listening, you can definitely hear the comfort and ease and confidence that he has. And he is definitely a great resource for anyone that is either moving to that area or is interested in referring business to an agent. So visit his website, Jeff Lottmann. And I'm going to spell that for you. It's, of course, Jeff, Jeff, and then Lottmann is 2 T's and 2 N's. So Jeff, LOTTMANN.com. You can contact him very easily through his website. And Jeff is obviously one of the top agents in the St. Louis area. And of course, he is always happy to talk with any of our listeners who might need his services. So please reach out to him if you have anyone who's either moving to that area or if you yourself are interested in speaking to his team. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was a real honor for us. I was a St. Louis native or resident, not a native. And we could, next time, if we have you on, we can talk about Ted Drew's ice cream. We could talk about Emo's Pizza and The Hill, which is where all the best Italian restaurants are in St. Louis. And Jeff and I, we actually talked about, I used to work for a company that he got a job offer for, the same company. And so we have a fun little history there, but maybe we'll touch on that next time. But Jeff, thank you on behalf of our audience. We really appreciate your time. We know how busy you are and that you don't really even have time to do this sort of thing. And you found time to do it. And we're grateful for that. On behalf of Jeff and myself, we want to say thank you as well to the listeners and the viewers, and to remind everybody just to do 2 quick things. Number one, the best way that you can help our our show is telling a friend. Think of one other real estate professional that could benefit from hearing this great conversation with Jeff. I mean, so many great tips he provided in this hour, and send them a link to our website. It's the easiest way that anyone can listen to our show, even if they're not a podcast person. Go to keepingitrealpod.com. They can stream every episode we've ever done there. Or if they are a podcast person, just have them pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, and hit that subscribe button. And second, please support our sponsor, Follow Up Boss. Again, remember, 30-day free trial, no credit card required, best CRM in the industry, which is followupboss.com/real. Jeff, thank you so much for being on our show, and we will see everyone on the next episode.